Hey everybody, welcome to Spill the Novelty, where three girlies shout into the void about our latest book hot takes and obsessions. I'm Abby.
I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaylee.
This week we're continuing the Cruel Prince series and spilling the tea on The Wicked King by Holly Black. So if you read book one and you really want to see Harden go from enemy to lover in book two, which I know we were all waiting on, here's the tea.
Yes, so naturally, we'll start with Jude and Carden's little relationship. So basically, their relationship super complicated. Like Jude can command Carden, and she does it all the time due to the deal that they or oath or whatever that they made in book one. But at the same time, kind of their feelings and intimacy are growing a lot throughout the book. And Jude is also keeping quite a lot of secrets and pretty major secrets from Carden. And he kind of finds out about them throughout the book and like has a little bit of like resentment towards her. And then by the end of the book, everything gets like super complicated, but we'll talk about that later. um, so personally, I love their relationship. Like, I love the balance of love and hatred throughout. Like, and it's very genuine. Like, it's not like insta lovey and like fake enemies to lovers. Like they've gone back to
Mm-hmm.
kind of enemies, and they
Mhm.
they go back and forth between enemies and lovers like constantly throughout the book, which is really interesting to read. And I'm here for it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the best thing about their relationship for me is just that, like, neither of them can fully trust the other, and it's completely understandable why. It's too dangerous for Jude to fully trust Carden, and Carden can't fully trust Jude because she's also incredibly dangerous to him for all the reasons that you listed. And so they kind of like are just thrust into these situations where they have to make decisions, and they have to make decisions without the other one's input. And there's so many things that happen to Jude specifically, and she's not tied to the hip with Carden, so he's just not there. And it's almost like, oh my god, we haven't actually talked to Carden since this event. Like, no wonder he doesn't know anything. We just haven't been with him since. And so it's almost
Mhm.
miscommunication trope, but in the most natural way, because they're just not together all the time. And so many things are happening to Jude in isolation that it's like, dang, I don't even think we meant to keep that as a secret from Carden, but like he just doesn't know about it yet. Like, there are definitely things she keeps
Yeah,
on purpose, but there's a lot of things that I'm like, brother, it's been a crazy 2 days. Like, give us a break.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I think too, the critique that I see online of the series as it's for a romance is that, there's not enough of it. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's, and it's all a taste thing, but I think that's part of the reason why we like it. And that gets back to like both of them have their own motivations, political aspirations, political, or, at least for Carden, like his family's background, her family background. And so I love that they continue to maintain their very like, their paths, even though of course Jude is controlling
Hmm.
him or has the ability to control
Mm-hmm.
him. But that is what builds that tension because I think they also definitely like admire each other too.
Mm-hmm.
Not just are interested in each other, but admire them. And yeah, that just it creates the best little tension, and I love it. They eat it up.
Yeah, I love that you said that they have each have their own kind of path because that reminded me of like the end. I'm jumping ahead, but the end spoiler where they get married because like they're not getting married because they like deeply love each other. They're getting
Mm-hmm.
married because it's like for power on both sides. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's really distinct from other books, not even just YA, but like adult fantasy too. Because, like, usually by the time the characters get married, it's probably like, the third, fourth book in the series, and it's kind of coming to an end a little bit. But for them,
Mm-hmm.
like, their story's just getting started, and they haven't even gotten to, like, I love you yet? And
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
really, oh, it's so good. It's
And
good.
it's so
Love it.
arguable whether they ever will, because they just both have such
Yeah,
a little like hate kink.
yeah,
They do.
yeah, they do.
Like,
I
and
love it.
I love it. It's just so layered and complex, and like it feels so different than the other couples that we get that I also really enjoy. Like, to be clear, I really
Yeah.
enjoy, like, when it's written well, the fawning male lead that like would do anything for the female lead and blah blah blah. And I think we see pieces of that with Carden in this book, but I also think, like, just to talk about his, like, personal growth too, like, I think we really see him come into his own as a character and come to terms with, like, being the king of Elfhame, and we see how that affects Jude in her position, which, going back to, like, they can't trust each other, that makes her less able to trust him, because the more that he kind of grows into this role, the more questionable it is that he'll hand it over to Oak when it's time. And it just adds to the complexity, because she's obviously, there's part of her, just like there's part of us that love seeing Carden come into his own and, like, learn to command his space and you know, I don't know if y'all have seen this meme. He's really holding the space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity.
Defying Gravity.
He's really holding that space. And she's holding
That's
his
amazing.
finger.
I didn't know that he was doing that. Yeah.
So amazing.
Sorry.
It's so
wicked
powerful.
meme.
Yeah, Abby and I are clearly on TikTok way too much, but
chronically online. And I think too, the reason why, again, getting back to, like, the admiration, like, and we get that from book 1 with Pardon, especially, like, it's almost like a jealousy thing, like, you know, real recognizing real, like, he knows how smart and cunning Jude is, and I think in book 2 especially, we get more of the admissions of that as they get, like, a little bit closer, but with being able to acknowledge how smart and cunning she is, he also has to acknowledge, like, the threat, or at least lack of trust that he can have in her, because she could pose a threat to him. So it's just that tension is just so fun. I love it. And I love a man kind of, especially, like, having a male character who's, like, low-key, like, he is obsessed with her, but he also, you know, he's smart enough to handle it the right way. But or like the line about I want to tell you so many lies, or whatever it is. Oh girl.
Oh, I know, that one was
Please,
so
I'm
good.
weak. That was super effective against me. Like, I perished.
Oh yeah. I was like, I don't know what this says about me, but that
it's so
yeah,
toxic.
exactly.
They're so toxic, but I love it.
They are.
That whole scene is toxic, or like him. Yeah, I won't jump ahead, but the lead up in that scene of, because he's basically like, you know, would she like this? Like, he's about to seduce her under the guise of like, this is how he would seduce. What's her name? Yeah. Anyway, it's so good.
Yeah. Speaking of, so the main point of contention in this book, the premise is that, so you have the kingdom of Elfhame, okay, and they're basically, that's like the land kingdom. That's what Carden is in charge of. But you also have this neighboring queendom called the Undersea, and the queen of the Undersea, she did have an alliance with the previous king. That king is dead, and so now she's trying to make some money moves during this book. Okay, she's trying to play some hands to get some more power, and her first angle with this is with her daughter, who I call her Nicasia. I don't know if that's correct.
In the audiobook, it's Nicasia.
Nicasia. Okay, Nicasia. I will try to remember that, and I won't. So apologies in advance for that. But Nicasia has grown up on land, and her and Carden actually used to be an item until she kind of got manipulated by this other fae who we hate. It doesn't matter, whatever. But the queen of the Undersea decides that this is her first angle that she's going to play. She sends a messenger to Carden to basically threaten him and say, if you don't marry my daughter to create an alliance between our kingdoms, we will go to war. This is one of two options. Like, it ain't no thing. Either you marry Nicasia or we're going to go to war. And this is the first kind of like crux that we get with Carden and Jude in this book, where Carden is not interested really in marrying Nicasia. He resents like being forced to make this decision from the Queen of the Undersea. Jude has complex feelings about it because she doesn't want to go to war, but also she obviously is very much struggling with the fact that the reality is she just also doesn't want Carden to marry someone else.
Jealous,
She's jealous. And so this is very much, it's not maybe the most unique plot point that's ever existed. However, it ate nonetheless, if I may be so bold.
Absolutely. Yeah, like, I feel like we see this all the time in fantasy, but I
Mm-hmm.
also don't care because,
Nope.
these characters are also so good, and especially, like, the jealousy, and it's so subtle because again, like, her primary concern Jude's primary concern is, yeah, the larger, like, political implications of this, but just seeing the little jealousy, like,
Just
seep
little
through too, and
cracks.
her, like, trying to manage that, like, oh, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And I like immediately was into even just like at a very basic level, um, like the concept of like the undersea. I don't know. I thought that was a fun setting. I like that we got to go there a bit later on in the book. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
here for it.
Yeah, it felt a tad random to me at the time. Like reading it this time, just like for this to be the main conflict, I think it surprised me because like in the first book there wasn't really I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember there being a conflict with the undersea like this. I thought it would be like Royden and the whole favorite thing or like something else, but I did really like it nonetheless. I loved the jealousy element of it just because I feel like it made Jude a little bit more relatable as a character because like she's such a badass that it almost makes her like unrelatable because you're so brave and like I don't know, just
Mm-hmm.
like the way she holds power above even Carden is like
Mm-hmm.
unrelatable to me. But then you have this girl who's like a little bit jealous, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I
It's
relate,
literally
you
humanizing.
know? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
the vulnerability and like the little bit of softy coming through of like
Mm-hmm. She's
I
just a
don't want that to
girl at the
happen.
end of the
Just a
day.
girl, just a girl with a
Yeah.
yeah,
crush on Carden, and we all can relate.
Yeah.
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 Um, a kind of another important thing that happens at this time. So like basically, the queen Orla, she like does her whole threat thing. The threatening happens, and then Carden's like, okay, Jude, like go get a council together, and so Jude does, but right before she can do that, Maddox, her, if we remember, that's her like essentially her adoptive dad. He pulls her aside and like tries to get Jude on his side and kind of tries to get under like what really is happening between Jude and Carden. And of course Jude like refuses. But this relates, kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but this relates to something later in the book that happens where he hears her commanding Carden and ends up threatening her, like stating that basically once they defeat the Undersea together, because they're kind of on the same side for that part, he's going to start treating her as an equal and an
Mm-hmm.
enemy.
Yeah.
So kind of talking about Maddox and Jude's relationship here, but it's a little complicated and it gets more complicated in this book. And there are a lot of like little things that kind of happen that I noticed this time around that like complicate it even more. Like, for example, when the council is actually meeting and he asks her opinion when no one else is like hearing her out or interested in her opinion, I thought that was really good. But at the same time, and this is a hot take, but it's really apparent to me that no love exists between Maddox and Jude anymore. And to be honest, I don't really think there ever was any, but I'm sorry,
Oh,
Maddie. I know you're going to disagree with me, but before you do, I just want to say there there is no like there are no signs throughout the book. So anything that you think that there is love there, I feel like you would be inferring it. But that's what
oh,
I'm gonna say. I don't think that there was
oh.
anything on the second read. I don't think there was anything indicating that there is love between them, and that's all I'm okay. That's all I'm gonna
Can
say.
you tell me what you're looking for as an indicator of love that would make sense in this specific scenario that these
Like
characters are in?
maybe him doing something that would show he still cares for her, like
Like a daddy daughter
him.
tea date?
No, just like
Like
protective,
what are we looking for here?
like when she gets in the in she gets attacked later on by like Locke's dudes. Spoiler, but he shows up and is like saves her or like something like that. Something a little bit like more obvious that he like still feels something for her. But she doesn't do anything for him either that indicates that she feels for him at all.
Yeah, and I mean using that attack as like a specific circumstance, she doesn't invite him into that at all. Like she doesn't even tell him what happened. She doesn't tell basically anyone that she was attacked. Vivi only found out because she walked in on Jude
Yeah.
like in the bathroom. Like I think it's unfair to hold that against Madoc when Jude is purposefully isolating herself from everyone that she possibly can because she has this is one of her character flaws, right? She doesn't trust anyone else to handle anything or help her with anything. She really doesn't have any allies because she doesn't trust anyone. She thinks she has to do it all on her own, and she thinks she has to be strong, and that if she admits that she needs help, like, it's weak. And this causes friction in all of her personal relationships, including hers and Maddox. I mean, when she's healing from the kidnapping that happens later on, spoiler. But like, yeah, she goes, like, Maddox's house takes care of her or whatever, but she even comments like that she could involve him more, but she just chooses not to. So like, and I don't
Yeah.
think it's, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's for a lack of trying on his part, because even the times that he does go to her and get her to be on his side, I think he makes as much of an effort as can be expected to give her flowers and to say like, hey, you did this, you did a good job, but like, now let's work together, like, be under my wing. And I think it would be unreasonable to expect him to like defer to her in any way or be like, cool, you won. Like, she's his daughter. He's like hundreds of years old. She's like 18 probably, and she's in his eyes, and I would mostly agree with him, like, she's a kid who got a lucky streak and she made some really clever decisions. But like, if I saw an 18-year-old doing anything, I would be like, baby girl, you did a good job up until this point, but it's time to let the adults handle it. You know what I mean?
But he manipulate in those conversations where he's like saying like, okay, come join my side. He's manipulating her. Like he is saying like basically what you just said. Like, he's saying like, you did a good job, but like, in the end, I'm going to best you. And he's like saying these things to manipulate her into joining him. He's not doing it out of love or care for her in any way, shape, or form. He's doing it because he knows that she has the upper hand, and he wants to best her. Like,
I think it's, I don't think that love comes into the equation when we're talking about their business. I think for me, the example of love, which you're right that this is an inference, but like, the example of love is that he's not actively trying to kill her for what she has done to him. She has wronged him. She has betrayed him. She has lied to him. And the fact that he is just kind of coexisting in this space with her, yes, to serve like a greater plan, but like, that is an affordance that no one else would have gotten except for his daughter. And I think that's as close to love as we ever see in fairy. Like, we're constantly told throughout the stories that they don't translate emotions the same way we do. And I think that's part of why we don't have like this kind of like undying love thing between her and Carden, right? Because like, he loves her, but it doesn't process emotions the same way that like a human would, right? But like, it's the same with Madoc and Jude. But I don't think there's like a lack of love in the sense that he doesn't feel like a father to her anymore. Like, I think he's treating her like his political enemy, and she is. That is just what she is now, but I don't think that erases like fatherly feelings he may have for her. He just can't act on those right now because it's not appropriate for the situation.
I guess I disagree with the part where you said that he's like not killing her out of love for her, because I think it's because, like I said, she has the upper hand. She's like a window of possibility into this world of like ruling. And so he wants to use her in any way he can. And that's why he's trying to get her to join his side and like do things for him, like, so that he can live through her, essentially. I don't think it's because he loves her. I think if this book were adult, I think at any drop of the hat, like anytime that he realizes that she's no longer gonna, there's no possibility there anymore, I think he would kill her. But it's YA, so. I mean, anyway, you've been really, really quiet about this.
No,
So.
no. Well, I was actually going to bring up the prologue with all this and ask, like, what if you think that impacts it? Because I think what you just said, Kaylee, I wonder, because as soon as I read the prologue, I was kind of wondering like how this is going to come back around in the book. And basically, the prologue is essentially that It's I believe, like a flashback of Maddox and Jude and Taryn playing this game that they're not sure if it's a game, where
Mm-hmm.
Maddox is like going to, I think it's kind of like King of the Hill, but he's like, I'm gonna take
Yeah.
your land. Like we're gonna do this thing, and I'm gonna come over and attack, and I want to respond, like figure it out. Taryn, to no one's surprise, just is completely useless. Jude is the one who has to take him on, and she starts to realize as he's coming that he is running really fast. He's like making these like sounds and stuff that show that like he's ready to attack, and she has to like sit there and confront like, is this a game or is it not? And the end result is that he ends up like he doesn't hurt them or anything. But he's teaching them a lesson of like power. I think the lesson was that power is harder to gain than to give up or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah.
There's like a interesting little thing there. But if that prologue is meant to be indicative of like where the relationship is in this book, then that makes me think that he sees her as a political like enemy, right? An adversary, but at the end of the day, he won't like go as far to kill her because his point is that there's still like he doesn't actively harm her in that because he knows like to him there is a boundary there, but he still will go as far to like scare her, to
Mm-hmm.
intimidate her, to see
Blackmail
her
her.
as his opponent. So I don't honestly I don't have enough of a take to know like what I think is going to happen with their relationship moving forward. But I did. It made me think of that prologue, and like I'm not sure if the answer is like is that supposed to be foreshadowing to like where the relationship gets to, or like kind of what the point of that prologue is. But that's what it makes me think of. You know.
Yeah. And I think too, like, for me, it's very common in the Fae world for family members to become political rivals. And so I don't think it is, both things can be true, I guess is what I'm saying. That can be your family, that can be your blood. You can have cared for them, raised them, whatever. But at the end of the day, the Fae basically always prioritize power. And I think at the end of the book, we see like it's just come enough to like a crux for Maddox that he's like, unfortunately, we've now crossed over into a boundary where I'm going to have to make some really difficult decisions because you've put me in this place. But I don't think that negates what comes before. That's the part of the life in the Fae world and how they handle political stuff. I mean, we saw it right with Balkan um, killing all of his family, and the Fae were a little like grossed out by it or like got the ick, but they weren't surprised. Like that's not unheard of. We even have
Um,
Prince Royben or whatever the hell. He did the same thing, right? He murdered his way to get to the throne. Does that mean he never liked his family? I don't think so. It just means for him, his priority was power, but that doesn't negate, like, I don't know, familial bonds. And, like, for example, I don't even remember what happened in the third book, but, like, if Jude were to kill Taryn, would you then be like, well, she killed her sister. She doesn't love her? Like, no, because we all hate Taryn. We'd be like, yeah,
I'd be like,
Taryn
"Fuck
sucks.
Taryn."
Yeah,
I would
I'd
Taryn
probably
be
put
say
her
that
in a
she
position.
doesn't love her in that moment. Yeah. I
No
do think that in
way.
that moment. In that moment, I don't think you can kill someone that you love unless they're trying to kill you first. Like I don't think you can seek them out, a premeditated murder, unless you don't love them. Like I that's not believable
Hmm.
to me, but so we'll just have to agree to disagree on this one. That's pretty typical for father-daughter
I was about to say I'm gonna
relationships anyway.
bring up the V
Bring up
word
Vincent again.
instant
Not
because
We
Vincent
won't
the
bring
again.
up
last
Vincent again, I promise.
my last
Um
sentence, my last statement
okay,
on
okay,
that
go
is
for
that
it.
if we were hypothetically to bring up an example like said person, I do think love is for characters who do not express love
Hmm.
very openly. I think it's seen more through like the little action. So I do think that like the prologue, like no, it would not the bar should not be like so low that it's like, oh, he was just
I
gonna
was thinking.
use this game to just murder them, right? But the fact that he set this up, like I think this was meant to be an act of love for him to give them this lesson. And the way that he knows how to express love
Yeah.
is that he knows that they're going to go through like tough political issues and dangers and threats in fairy. And so him giving this lesson, it is very tough love. It is not like it's not the most flowery, it's not rainbows and butterflies, but that is, I do think, his way of expressing love is he's like, I have this knowledge of this. Let me show it to you and prove it to you in a way that like through this game. Like I think for a character like him who is very powerful and not open like that, that is probably a way to express it. Or like cursed to bring
Mm-hmm.
up Beauty and the Beast, even cursed. Like how does Beast express like affection? It's very like guarded. It's through these like little acts. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that when you have a character who is this kind of like powerful person who's not very open, I think sometimes you can see that in how they it's the little acts that they give to like share knowledge or to pay attention to the little things where they show that love. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, this is I have no idea what I think is going to happen in the next book as it relates to them. So
I don't remember it all, so it'd be fun
I
to
don't
read it
either.
in like January or whenever we do.
Hell yeah.
to you. Okay. So that like side note,
Anyways.
this one piece of the story. So something else that happens is there is an attack that we had kind of alluded to. So Taryn asked Jude to spend the night with her before Taryn's wedding, and on the way to her old house, Jude is attacked and hit with an arrow in her leg, and she ends up escaping, and she's okay. But we later learn that Locke, who is, if you remember from book one, Taryn's betrothed and someone that Jude used to have a fling with, Locke was the one who attacked Jude. So for me, this was like, it wasn't a huge thing that I fixated on a lot. I thought it was a good little moment to sprinkle in some like political drama. And this is the kind of thing that would happen in this kind of scenario that we have going on with a lot of complication. But I was surprised by the Locke reveal. Maybe I shouldn't have been. I don't know. Maybe I should have picked up on that. But as we'll talk about, this book has like lots of little twists and stuff. And I think this is definitely one of the first ones that jumped at me. So
Yeah, I think the earring reveal as part of this was like a little bit surprising, but personally, I can't say much about this part because I fell asleep during the attack. So when the earring reveal happened after I woke up, I was like, because I was listening to the audiobook for this one. So when the earring reveal happened, I was really confused. But I will say, I think the point of the attack is probably just so Jude gets injured and weakened. So I guess it serves a purpose, but other than that, I think it's kind of unnecessary. Like I said, I fell asleep and I was slightly confused when I woke up, but like I wasn't confused enough to where I wanted to rewind and listen to it again. So
This
maybe
is
it could have been cut.
interesting.
I don't know.
This is
Oh,
interesting
okay.
to me.
What
I
do you
feel
think,
very
Meg?
different than you guys about
Okay.
this whole debacle. Um I really liked it, obviously. I like that she gets wounded and it feels like a wound that matters. I think in a lot of fantasy books, we get a lot of wounds that just conveniently
yeah.
kind of go away
Get
after a
healed,
couple
yeah.
pages. So I really liked that there was so much consequence to this event. I think it's a really good reminder of how fragile Jude is. And again, reminding us that the odds are completely stacked against her. And these things happen all the time. They will continue to happen. She's just a human. And again, it's that punishment of, and she even calls this out in the moment, it's that punishment of Jude trying to do everything on her own, right? Because she's completely alone. She's borderline helpless, and it doesn't matter how much her allies try to help her. That's her flaw over and over and over and over and over again. It's not involving her allies, and she pays for it here and throughout the rest of the book, really. But the other reason I really like this, for me, what it did, especially with the reveal that it was Locke, is it made me feel overwhelmed with how many things are happening at all times and how much juggling there is to do, because when Jude realizes it, she can't act on it. It's not the time. There's so much bigger things happening that an attempt on her life by her sister's husband is not important enough to address in that moment. And I think the weight of that realization and decision speaks so much to the decisions that Jude has to make throughout the entire book. where she deprioritizes her life and her safetyhood, yikes, her safety livelihood over everything else that's going on, because genuinely in that moment it's not the most important thing that she's realizing. It's not the most important thing that's coming up.
Mhm.
And without an event like this, that yes, it does seem random, but without that happening, we don't get that realization, and we don't get to feel as overwhelmed as Jude and to understand how she's making these decisions. And um I don't know, I feel like those are two important things that like I took away from that situation, that I don't know that we would necessarily get them from anything else that happens in the book, even though there's so much else that happens in the book. But this complicated thing with Locke is just won't die, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you about any of that. I just still think it. I do still think it should have been cut, but I like that what we saw from that was that Jude is very mature. She's a very powerful player in this political game that they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, like in this moment where she looked at him and she sees the earrings and she realized it was him, she probably, like, her face probably stayed pretty blank from my
Mm-hmm.
understanding. Like, she didn't react. She didn't go up to him and like try to kill him like anyone else probably would have done in any other book, which just shows how like level-headed, cool, calm, collected she is.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't necessarily think. I think maybe this could have been done a little bit differently or a little more
Mm-hmm.
condensed to where it wasn't as big of a, it wasn't even that big of a deal. Like, I don't know. No, you know, see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
I think your reasonings, Maddie, I think those are a lot of good points on like the purpose that it serves. Because I think for me, if the purpose was to solidify that Locke is bad and is not to be trusted, like, you know, we obviously didn't need that at this point. We know that. We have many reasons to believe that. But I think the way you have, and so I think that that was my first thought, is I was like, okay, I'm kind of surprised by the reveal, but also
Not that surprised.
no shit, he sucks. But no, you're right. I think it does build up that anxiety that Jude is feeling. I think that's a great way of just kind of framing that it is only a small piece in the major puzzle, and for her to have to put that on the back burner is kind of crazy. So
Yeah.
I that's a good point.
And you know, one last thing that I feel like it does is like, we've talked a lot before about side characters feeling like they're alive when the main character isn't around them.
mm,
And I feel like this is a good
Mm,
example of that, because this is something that Locke would decide to do for his bachelor party. Like, that piece makes complete sense. And take away all of Jude's BS. If you look at Locke's plotline from what we know of the snapshot that we have of it, why wouldn't he make this decision to insert himself in her story? He loves fucking with her. He loves putting her in
mhm,
danger. Like, and that also gets at Carden, right? We have this scene earlier in the book of Locke
mhm,
basically admitting that some of what he's doing is to get at Carden through her, right? So, um, yes, it's not as relevant maybe to Jude's plotline, but it makes me feel like Locke is alive and behind the scenes and making his own decisions.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
like that. It's, if I laid out the plot of the book on a timeline, I think I agree, like, it could be cut in terms of making the plot clean, clear plot lines, but this is part of what makes the book feel so 3D to me, is that we know Maddox is behind the scenes doing stuff. You know, Balekin's behind the
mm,
scenes doing stuff. Locke, who we would otherwise forget about, but he's important. Like, he's doing stuff that is so annoying and inconvenient and affects Jude's life because he has this weird thing with her. And so
mhm.
yeah,
that's
that's a
That's a
my
good
great point.
point.
last.
Maybe you brought me to the other side. I don't know.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
she got me.
I
Got me
did
with that one.
Keep the
Yeah.
12
You did it.
pages in.
She did it. She spilled. Well, I was gonna say too, to your point about making the characters feel 3D, because I would also agree with that. With like you were mentioning with Madoc and a lot of the other side
Mm-hmm.
characters, I feel the same way. And I read this on Kindle and listened a bit on Audible. So I'm wondering, like, do y'all know how long this book is? Because I have been impressed with like, I feel like it captures quite a lot, and I was thinking that it wasn't
Uh-huh.
particularly long for like a YA fantasy, but I also don't know. maybe it's just average.
It's about the exact same length as Cruel Prince. They're each of the three books is the almost the exact same size.
Okay.
Like
So if that gives
Okay.
350
you any frame of reference, I don't know how many
pages-ish.
pages. How many?
350.
350-ish, I
Oh,
think.
okay. 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 I feel
So
like
not
that is,
ACOTAR big, but
yeah,
decent.
Yeah.
but like decently big, but not too crazy out there. Okay. Yeah, I've been
A lot
impressed. I
does
was
happen
impressed.
though. I agree.
A
I was
lot
Yeah.
impressed by
happens.
how much it juggles. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when we talk about characters being 3D and doing things behind the
Hmm.
scenes, we would be remiss to not talk about what I think is probably the biggest betrayal in the book. Arguable. There's so many that we're going to be coming up
It's a big
on.
one.
But we discover on the night of Taryn and Locke's wedding, um, that the ghost, who is one of the spies that Jude works with, he's like a very likable character. He's definitely a side character, but like I really liked him. He was very
Hmm.
cool. Has betrayed Jude essentially. So what happens is he basically pulls her away from the party by saying that the undersea is kind of attacking. He pulls her away to this secluded area, the Tower of Forgetting, and basically she's then ambushed by the undersea with the ghost's help. And she's kidnapped. And this is a big deal. Again, this is someone who she's fully trusted with basically everything, one of her closest confidants. We knew betrayals were coming because earlier in the book, Nicasia plants this very annoying seed that someone close to you has betrayed you, but obviously she won't say anymore, which is why it's annoying because girl just spit it out then. And to be honest, I don't even think she's talking about the ghost. But that's Jude's
Yeah.
conclusion at this stage, is that this was talking about the ghost. And yeah, she is taken prisoner to the undersea where she has to pretend to be glamored, because she can't
Mhm.
be glamored thanks to the G's that Dane gave her in the first book.
Gesh.
The Gesh. Oh, the
That's how it's
Gesh.
pronounced on the audiobook. It's the Gesh. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
spelled so weird. Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
fancy. Okay.
So she has to do like a bunch of humiliating things. She like makes out with Baelkin because he obviously has like some weird, I don't, girl, it's weird. But she agrees that she's gonna like kill Card. They're like, yeah, you're gonna kill Carden because you love us. And she's like, for sure, skis. And it's
So
a
true.
tough section of the book to get through because they starve her,
Yes.
they put her in a cage. She's there for about a month, I think, and treated just really bad and has to pretend to love it. And by the end of it, she's like so delulu that she can hardly even, I don't know, keep her wits about her to pretend to be glamored. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for me, the ghost betrayal, legendary. I I would say that I wish we had gotten some hints towards it, but I honestly don't. Like, I like that she kind of took the ghost just as trustworthy, and so did we, and we both paid for that. So
Mhm.
I liked that angle of it. I liked that it was really surprising. The kidnapping, it's tough, girl, but like I was here for it. It's a good scene. I like that she actually got to pretend to be glamored and got to use like her lying skills, which I think we talked about last book, but damn, that's a tough one.
It is tough, but I was
It's
impressed with
interesting.
it. Yeah. I mean, especially the pretending to be glamored, I thought was so well done. And my one, and I know, and I think that it's a bit of like general fairy lore. So this is why I haven't brought it up in this episode or the previous episode as a gripe, because I think that it might just be part of bigger lore. But the whole like, they can't lie thing always just was like
Mm-hmm.
either really convenient or just a weird piece of deeper fairy lore that I
Yeah.
just thought is kind of annoying. But I think the pretending to be glamored aspect, like the way that this is used, kind of gets rid of that like kind of weird little tiny frustration of mine because of how important it is in this moment and how well she uses it. So
Mm-hmm.
I did really like that. And I think when we talk about like kidnapping or like torture scenes, I know like when we did it was in Iron Flame,
Mm-hmm.
where we talked a lot about like why that was successful and why it was so well done. And I feel the same about these scenes that I hard read, like you said, hard read, but very well done. So
I agree. About the lying thing, I do think that is Faye lore.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I
It
think it
is.
shows not only that Holly Black like did her research, but also she planned out these 3 books, I'm guessing, before she even started the first book, because
Hmm.
she threw that in when it really wasn't that relevant to the first book, I don't think. But the
Mm-hmm.
second book, the whole not being able to lie thing with the Fae is very important throughout the
Hmm.
book. So I wanted to comment on that. As far
Yeah.
as the ghost betrayal, I kind of disagree on that one. Kind of a hot take, but I thought it was super underwhelming. Like, just because the ghost is such a side character,
Mm-hmm.
not an important character to the story, I wanted a bigger betrayal, but we get that later. So
Yeah.
I'm not complaining that this book didn't have enough betrayals. I'm just saying, as far as that betrayal by itself, it was a little underwhelming, and it happened so fast that like we didn't get a conversation between them where they were like going back and forth or anything. It was just like, oh,
That's
I'm
fair.
asleep, and then I wake up under the seat, literally. So yeah, but other than that, Chef's Kiss, loved that Jude had to pretend to be glamored, like we've been saying. It was so
Mm-hmm.
good and showed how smart and cunning she is. Like, just the way she was thinking through everything she said. There was never a moment where they detected that she was lying, it was really good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love Jude.
Yeah. I
Mm.
think I think what I would have been nice, Kaylee, to your point, because I agree with you. It's it's random. It's just quite sensible enough that like I could forgive it, but it is random. But the ghost betrayal, I mean, but I think what was missing is like a conversation after, like if he were to visit her when she was imprisoned, and then we were to get a little bit more insight
Mm-hmm.
on like his personal motivations, or even like a gotcha moment where he was like, "You never looked past what you saw on the surface, and that was your
Yeah.
thing." Which I know is
Hmm.
like a tacky, like, okay, we don't need the villain monologue thing, but like it's nice because it helps
It's
you
kind of
build out
nice.
that reasoning, and we don't get
Mm-hmm.
that. Um,
Well, and I also think, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Queen.
go pop off
I
for me.
was I was gonna say, I think one reason why I still felt like it hit was because in my mind I group like the little spies together, you know. So part
Mm-hmm.
of it too was not just betrayal by the ghost specifically, but it was more like these side characters
Yeah.
who we've kind of grown to like and you know like an unlikely match from the get-go and who I think have really taken to Jude, like, so it wasn't just like the ghost that hurt me specifically or made me like sad. It was,
Mm-hmm.
you know, this little
Her found
group in
family.
my head, her little found family
Yeah.
that in my head is so distinct as a group. Like I wouldn't say that I have attachment to the ghost,
Mm-hmm.
but I do have a little attachment to her little found family of these little spies. So
Yeah.
maybe that
Mm-hmm.
was why it was effective, but
That's a
for
good
me.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, Kaylee, just one more thing that I want to call out that I think was really well done is when she is thinking through how she's gonna act out this glamour. I loved that there was a paragraph where she was like, "I'm imagining a world in which Orlais, you know, was the one that adopted me and not Matic, and I grew up with." Nikasia as my sister, and she was maybe a little rough, but at the end of the day, she always protected me and da da da. And I love that we got to see that process, and it wasn't just a simple like bang, she knows how to like do this
Mm.
or whatever. I love that we got to see her thought process and see her kind of like get into character, because I think acting is really
Mm-hmm.
hard. And to be honest, I don't know that they fully believed her, but they have no reason to not believe that their glamour didn't work on her. And I think that's why they test
Mm-hmm.
her
Mhm.
in weird ways sometimes. Like, I think
Yeah.
the Balekin making her make out with him was a test.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Because he felt like something was not quite there. But my glamour has always worked on humans before. I don't know why it wouldn't work. That doesn't make any sense. Because, like,
Yeah.
the idea that a fae would give a human the ability to not be glamored is insane. No one would ever do that, you know? So it's like, I don't know. There was just enough going on that I feel like it was really good.
One plot hole there, though, that I was thinking about while I was reading this is most of the time in Fae books, like a glamour or whatever they call it, or Gesh, or I don't even know, whatever they call it, the Dane and Jude like little oath thing where she can't be glamored.
Yeah.
Like, would that not end when he dies in any other book? You know?
Yeah,
But whatever.
I think in any other book probably, because she did at least call that out in the first book. Like, she kind of tests it after Dane dies, and she's surprised that it still works. But I guess the theory or the excuse, maybe because we need it for the rest of the series, obviously, to work, is that there was no condition put on it. The terms of the deal were that he was the only one that could glamour her. Not until he died, not until da-da-da, and it's almost like a punishment because he didn't do the terms of his deal well enough because he didn't expect to die because he was overconfident, right? So
okay.
I think that's like
That's cheap.
the pitch defense. I agree with you. It's a little bit of like a cheese,
Gotcha, like, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Still good that she thought it
loophole.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fact that she tests it out after he dies kind of proves that at least that thought was there of like, okay, I need to
Yeah.
find a way to address
Because
this.
I didn't remember that, so that's good. Good to know.
It's very small.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of what happens after this whole undersea thing is Carden rescues Jude, but at a cost. So he rescues Jude in return for Balekin's freedom, and Balekin kind of becoming the ambassador between the undersea and Elfheim, like land. And Balekin, he's also like, he still thinks that Jude's under his glamour at this point, so he's like, Jude, when we get back to land or whatever, you're gonna have to come visit me at whatever it's called. I don't remember.
Hollow Hall.
Hollow Hall, yeah. And kind of work for me, and then blah 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 blah. She does that, and he ends up giving her this vial of poison that he expects her to use on Carden. So there's kind of this weird like thing where he kind of made her kiss him, and then he thinks that they kind of like have a thing too at this point. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something like, it was like,
tell me you're completely mine. It was something weird like that.
Yeah, it was something icky and weird like that.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, he still thinks they like have a thing. I don't know, but that's going on too, and Jude's just pretending that she's glamored and blah blah blah. So this part of the book was kind of weird, but it was really good, and it's a good setup, this fake arrangement. And also, I forgot to mention, Arden rescuing Jude in return for his brother's freedom is really good. It shows that he's more in it than even maybe Jude is. Like, he's more into her than maybe she will admit that she's into him.
Yeah.
Like, I think he will do pretty much anything for her at this point. And it's good. It's good soup.
Yeah, I agree. I think Carden is definitely, and has been, way more down bad for Jude than Jude has been for Carden, which is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this whole setup is interesting. I think the payoff for this specific instance, or these instances, I guess, doesn't come until later. So I agree with you. It feels like an interim part of the book that I'm kind of like, where is all this going and how is it going to play out? But I think because it is, it's just realistically, Jude got home from the undersea and we have to handle that in some way. And I think this is how we handled it, And so I don't think it's like the most riveting part of the book. I think the Balekin thing is weird. And maybe that was specifically to give it a little bit of like intrigue. Which is like, I like it as a plot point just because it's weird and complicated and like, fuck it, might as well. But yeah, there's stuff it feels like a setup moment because it is. And so it's just a weird transitionary part to get to the next thing.
Bitch. So the thing in question. Soon after we have this masquerade ball, right? I'm making sure I remember timeline right. Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So there
This is
is a ball.
the oopsies. Sorry, we made a deal so that the undersea could attack you. Kiss, kiss. Masquerade ball.
Good
Right.
description, yes.
That in summary, that is in fact it. So yes, the ball, Carden, yes, kisses Jude in front of everyone. She takes poison on his mouth. Oh shit, not cool. Balkan tells everyone to turn their pockets inside out, and Jude realizes that Balkan had basically tried to have her framed for Carden's murder because she has like this like little poison little vial. But Jude and Carden get away because Jude tells everyone that like Carden's drunk and like he needs help. And so the roach and the bomb try to help get the poison out of Carden's system, but it can only be cured with an antidote that Balkan has. So all the drama, all the tea, what a scene. I love just like as a side note, I love a scene like at a ball or like big gala. I know we kind of got that previously with like the first book too, but
Mm-hmm.
ooh, just because everyone's watching, you cannot escape people seeing every little thing. And so which makes it perfect for
Mhm.
like the setup for her. So yeah, I
It
was
also
definitely here for
shows,
that.
like, sorry, I interrupted you. It
No,
also
go.
shows, like, how much, this is a side note, but how much Carden, like, feels for Jude, because, like, even though he's poisoned, whatever, this shows that he's very intoxicated, don't get me wrong. But he, like, kisses her in front of everyone, like, that moment where he's, like, all he wants to do is just, like, kiss Jude. Like, he's not like thinking about anything else. Like he's not thinking about
Mm-mm.
being the High King. Like he just wants to
Mhm.
kiss her, and like, oh, it's so cute. It's
I
cute.
would like to think
It
too. This is
is.
a headcanon. This is not canon. This is in my brain. I would like to
Okay.
think he did it so she could taste the poison too, because he couldn't verbalize to her that he was
Ooh.
poisoned. Um,
That's interesting.
but
Oh.
that could be totally fake. Okay, he's just Carden, but like that's my headcanon. Um,
I like
yeah,
it.
I
I like
think
that though.
I
Mhm.
think Kaylee, like, this is another great example, since we were just talking about it, of how Carden is more down bad than Jude, because Jude's opinion of Carden, and admittedly mine as the reader, he showed up. I said, this motherfucker is drunk again. Why would you
Mm-hmm.
do this now? I had no faith in him that anything else could
Mhm.
be up. And Jude does the same thing, right? She thinks, oh my god, this again. Her opinion of him to be responsible, even though the night before he was so responsible, so serious, talking so well, like whatever. Jude and I both had no faith in our little man to not just get sloshed before
Mm-hmm.
this really important meeting. And I think it was such a good egg on our face moment that no, he got poisoned. He was being a good boy. And she doesn't trust him. And again, this recurring theme of Jude not trusting people, and Carden calls her out on this later, but like she doesn't trust him and she needs to. They need to work together. And so I love that like
Mm-hmm.
the most about this scene, that it was just like, I don't know. I feel like I got dunked on and I was like, you're right. Carden is better than I thought
Yeah.
he was.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
and
cute.
I do think though too that it also I also always like this kind of trope. Like there's a TV show as a side note that I like that I watched this year is the new TV show version of Mr. and Miss Smith. And this is a big
Mm-hmm.
theme in there because they're both spies and it's very high risk, blah blah. And Jane can't trust John, who is the male lead, to do what he needs to do because
Mm-hmm.
things come up, things like that. But then you find out, so on one hand, it sucks because, like in this situation with Jude not trusting him, like that's not fair to him, and it's upsetting in moments like this where like it genuinely was not his fault. But it is also sad reflecting on why the character won't trust is because they have always had to do it for themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's a reflection of that again of like when you have this like hyper independent character, it's often because they feel like they have to be responsible one. And you look at like her
Mm-hmm.
sisters and you get it. It makes sense, right? So
Surprise,
um
surprise.
surprise, surprise. But yeah, it did make me sad. I was because I had the same thing. I was like, oh, he's just being a drunk idiot. Well, what do
Why
you know?
would you be a drunk idiot now? It makes no sense. Correct. It makes no sense. He would never.
Yeah.
He would never. He takes it seriously enough to not do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Sad little boy.
Edge. Yeah.
Um okay, so we have a poisoned Carden. We have Balekin obviously responsible. So essentially Jude kind of spirits Carden away to the rooms. They're trying to figure out how to unpoison him. Like Abby said, Balekin has the antidote. So Jude is like, okay, I have to go to Balekin to get this antidote. Essentially, she outsmarts Balekin by offering to poison herself, and then he has to give her the antidote to make sure the antidote works, and then she'll take the rest of the antidote back to Carden for whatever Balekin asked for. I don't even remember. It doesn't even matter. Don't even worry about it. This is a 2-page thing, okay?
Crown.
And
Yeah.
the crown. Of course, the crown. Obviously the crown. So, but then when he puts the antidote in her mouth, she spits it out into a vial, and now she's got the antidote. She faked being poisoned, whatever. It's a very clever thing. Okay, we slay. We give Jude her flowers for this. And then he's like, well, I'm pissed off. So how about we duel? And she's like, okay. And she ends the duel almost instantly, just like one hit KOs him. Easily.
Incredible. I love it. One hit KO. Yeah.
One hit KO. He's just dead. And then she goes back to the room with Carden, who has been given the antidote because the bomb was with her. And he's like, he's still a little like not quite right. He's like, hey girl, how did the boon that I gave you work out? And she's like, literally, what are you ever talking about? And he's like, you came in here in your little silly doublet that you always wear and you asked for a boon. And she's like, you dumb motherfucker. That was my sister. And my sister is up to something. And so we realize that Taryn has come to Carden in his moment of delirium, dressed as Jude, although with the fucking earrings, which was a real pisser offer, I'm just gonna say. Put in some effort. She's so sloppy. She's not even worth the successes that she has.
She's
It's
so
crazy.
annoying. Any win she gets is not her doing. Yeah.
It's not earned. It's not earned. And she basically, I guess the boon that she asked for, correct me if I'm wrong because I kind of blacked out a little bit, is that Maddox is free of his duties as the general. Like he can act however he wants without having
he's not under the influence of the crown. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, she's obviously working with Maddox. Maddox was like, I guess if I can't have Jude, I'll take the knockoff, Wish version. And use that to my power. Yeah, that's the tea. That's what happens. So, first of all, the Balekin Jude fight, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little underwhelming.
Definitely.
He's a villain for so long. I'm glad she won. There's a lot going on. I don't know how we could have made space for it to be more than it was realistically, but it was just a little underwhelming.
Yeah, I agree. I would have liked a little bit more.
She literally one hit kills him, like we said. Like, it couldn't. You tell me this man is a prince? Like he hasn't been training for this his whole life, and Jude, a human girl, can just whoosh, and then
just whoosh.
He's gone.
Girl boss.
Just whoosh.
And it would have even been fine, like, if she just outsmarted him because he underestimated her again or something. But, like, give us something. But she really is just like, I have to rush him. And so she does. And then he just is dead. And I don't know. It's not, I didn't love it. I liked it. It was fine. I liked it. Didn't love it. However, the Taryn betrayal is a slay. This is the big slay because also
it is.
Also, the thing we get out of this is that Jude is like, you fool. She can't command you. Like, she doesn't have the the jeesh. The jeesh.
Yeah.
Jeesh. She doesn't have the yesh that we have. Why would you do what she said? And Carden is like just so exasperated and frustrated. And he's like, because you don't have to command me to do anything. If you want it, I'll
Yeah.
just do it. Like, and I was trying to be a good
He's,
boyfriend and show you that you could
he's
just ask
caught.
me for something, and now it's your sister did it. I'm so annoyed. And she's like, "Why are you weeping? Get up. We have
Bro
stuff
was
to
caught simping. He got caught. That's why he was mad. He was like, he had to admit that it, in fact, was never the control at
He's
all.
even like,
It
I
was
was
simply
just,
because he
I
wanted
was
to.
just still dizzy, and like she was wearing your doublet that you always wear. Like it was,
Yeah.
oh god, it was pathetic in the most endearing way.
Endearing.
I was like, stop
Yeah,
yelling
endearing
at
is what I was
him.
gonna say too. I felt the exact same way. Like it didn't give me the ick like it normally would. I feel like with these guy characters being so dumb sometimes, but it was so good.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what this kind of leads to is, okay, so keeping that in mind that he like is saying like I trust you, I would do anything for you. He convinces, well, I shouldn't say it like that. He asks Jude to marry him and basically just get rid of their oath because he's like, we trust each other. I want to act freely, like you can trust me. And so Jude agrees, and they immediately perform a marriage ceremony. So they are wed. But there's a twist. Carden not only basically promotes Nicasia to be his ambassador, which is where Jude probably started to think like, oh shit, something's going on. But then he tells everyone that because Jude murdered Baelkin, he is banishing her to the mortal world indefinitely. And he also won't admit that they're married. So Jude is like, what? I'm the High Queen. Like, you can't do this to me. And everyone's laughing at her, and he laughs
So
too.
hard.
And he allows her to be humiliated in this moment. So I personally, this is my second read, like I said, I forgot about this. And I love it, but I hate it. Like, I have a very love-hate relationship with this because it's like Jude and Carden have made so much progress at this point. And we think they've made so much progress. And for me, it's not even the betrayal because, like, I interpreted that as, like, he wants to protect her or something. Yeah. Like, I think it's the fact that he allows her to be humiliated and laughed at. I think that hurts the most because it's like they've made all this progress. He cares for her so much. He's humiliated her in the past, and he's willing to do it again. And I think that cuts deep, you know?
Yeah, and you know what? I think it shows that he just actually never loved her because how could you humiliate the one that you love?
Crickets.
The silence. Okay, sorry, I was being edgy.
Crickets.
Yes. I've moved
that
on
was
from
so
that
edgy.
conversation. Don't worry.
Crickets.
We won't do it again.
No, he loves her.
Never again.
Yeah, Kaylee, I think this is like a reader privilege thing. Like, I think we can see the state that he was in when she returned to him from being kidnapped in the undersea. He's a very different person with very different priorities, very different worries. And so we can see much more clearly that this is what we hope to be a move to protect Jude, because she's just too fragile. But oh my god, the humiliation thing, it hurts so bad, and it's tough after his like good little speech about the trust and this and that and the other, and you're like, goddamn, you two really deserve each other. Like,
yeah.
When will there ever be trust? Ugh.
Tough ending, but you know that's why I loved it though, because it's rare that you get like a real gut punch like that. And especially, yeah, I don't know, I did not see that coming at all. So I love ending on a note like that.
And
it's tough too because like you have to see his perspective of like, she's lied to him again. Like, he knew, I think, that she killed Baelkin, but just hearing it from other people and then him having to be like, oh, I'm not surprised because she can totally beat him in a fight. Like, he says something like that.
Yep.
And it's like, I think he also knows at this point that she lied to him about his mom, like her, right? Like her interactions with Asha or whatever, his mom. So it's like she's lied to him a lot throughout this book, and I think each time it probably brought them back a step. And so I think that's why he's so willing probably to humiliate her in that moment. But like at the same time, it's still, yeah, still hurted.
I think it makes me think about the unlock that we got about how he felt towards his father, which is, if you think I'm bad, I can be worse. And I think he's trying to work through those things, but at the end of the day, that's how he's learned to survive, and he has a role to play. And I think it really hurts him when he realizes that Jude doesn't trust him with some of these things, and he says as much throughout the entire book, not even just at the end, but he says as much. And so I think there's a certain mentality of like, okay, if you think I'm that untrustworthy, I'm gonna be the most untrustworthy then.
Yeah.
Because now I can make decisions for the both of us and do what I think is right, since you've been doing what you think is right this whole time and excluding me. And so in a lot of ways, I almost feel like it's a little bit deserved. That doesn't make it any easier to swallow, because we love our girl Jude. But it's a good, messy situation. I like having mixed feelings about it.
Same. Agreed. I do too. I love a cliffhanger too. Like, I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's good.
And to be able to do a cliffhanger for book 1 and book 2, like, it's normally you don't get to have a couple of really strong, like, actually shocking cliffhangers. So props to our girl. That's because this one hit as much as the first one, if not more. So
yeah,
agreed.
Pain.
All right. On to everyone's favorite part of the pod, where we talk about our hot takes and our pour-overs.
Woo.
I'll go first because mine are boring. My hot take, I still don't give a fuck about Oak, and I never will. I don't think he should be king. I don't care about this little brat. Bro, when I tell you the dissociation was so strong, the chapters that we were going back to see Oak and Vivi and this whole thing with Heather, I'm like, okay, I care a little, but I skip it so hard. Like, I just do not care. It's not worth my time. I think Oak is like this weird thing hanging over the rest of the book, and I almost wish he just wasn't even there. I'm like,
so honestly, right. This child would just die.
Kill him. Yeah, like, just kill him. I'm over it.
That's YA. That won't happen.
It won't happen. But he shouldn't have existed in the first place, and I stand by that. So that's my hot take.
I thought I would disagree, but I don't disagree. So
no, my hot take is child murder in book, not in real life, to be clear. And then my pour over, we talked about it. It's Cardin's betrayal. I think there's so many layers to it. I think it does so much for his character and for his character growth in this book of becoming his own person. I think it adds so much complexity to their relationship that makes it so clear that he's not just a pawn for her to use. He's not just going to do anything she wants him to do just because she wants him to do it. Blah, 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 blah. I'm a Cardin stan until the day I die. And
yes,
no one can shame me for that.
Yes. Okay. My hot take, I have 2 medium takes. Well, 1 hot take, 1 warm take. No, 1 hot take, 1 cold take. There we go. So hot take, the second half of the book comes way too late. Like, so much, but so little happens in the first, I say half of the book, but because they separate it into, Holly Black separates it into book 1 and book 2. So book 2 comes like 3/4 of the way through the actual book. So it's like, first of all, why'd you even do that? Second of all, just, we couldn't have spread this out a little bit, like, just a little bit, like, yeah. It seems like Holly Black got inspiration from Sarah J. Maas when she was like, I'm going to cram all this action into the very end of the book. And I still really love this book, but I just think the pacing was a little off. So
I think that's fair. Counterpoint, book is twice as long and we get more fleshed out plot points.
Wait, what?
Compared to SJM.
Oh,
Are
compared to
you?
SJM. Yeah. That's
No,
completely
I'm
Is
valid.
that?
Yeah.
saying, what if
Oh.
instead of
Oh.
the second half of the
Oh.
book doesn't happen until 3/4 of the book, we double the book's size. We actually
Yeah.
just get more fleshed out plot points. We go full SJM, but better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know though. I kind of like how much I still
Abby's always
think
anti make the book longer, and that's what I
I
love.
She is.
am. I am. I am
We're like,
consistent
give
on
us a
that
long
point.
book, give us a novella, and Abby's like,
That's right.
no, thank you.
No,
That's
cut
right.
it, cut it. No, this
Cut
one I don't
it.
think needs any cutting. I think I agree. Maybe some sprinkling in a little bit more, just so that we don't get like too bored or things are too slow in the beginning. However, I think this is actually a very good book length for everything that happens. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not pro cut it. I'm not pro extend it. But it's just, the nice,
It's
not
just
too
right.
little,
It's
not too much.
Goldilocks.
It's just right. Goldilocks. She did it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thought.
My cold take, and you're gonna see why it's cold in a second, is that the last sentence of the book, I think, is revenge is sweet, but ice cream is sweeter. And it almost made me gag. It was so cheesy. Well, it was like,
Really?
because
That is terrible. Because they're in
Jude
the
says revenge
mortal.
is sweet, and then Vivi's like, but ice cream is sweeter.
Oh.
And it is so disgusting.
Oh
And yeah,
no.
just had to get that out. I'm like, I hate it when you end books with a one-liner that's supposed
A
to be
quip.
funny, and it just is icky. Okay, and then my pour over
Down
betrayal,
with
same thing as
Vivi.
Vivi. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Betrayal.
Okay. Oh, sorry, you said the betrayal. Yeah. My hot take, I was just sitting here and thought of this one because I was gonna say something similar about like I wish the beginning would have been faster, which I do. But I was just thinking about it when we were talking about Balekin and we're talking about how quickly Jude kills him and how it's a whole lot of nothing. I think my hot take is that she should not have killed him. She could have hurt him. He could have run away. He should have been in this next book because that tension, I think, like even if she like seriously injures him, he escapes, something like that. I think that could have, maybe it's not a hot take, it's like a medium take, but I think that would have been a more interesting way to maybe address that conflict. And yeah, because I think a lot of the stuff that happened with the poison and everything still could have happened. They still could have dueled. And then I don't know, she seriously injures him, she runs away, he's found, and it's like a whole thing, or I don't know. The whole Balekin thing need to be handled differently. So, and he's a good enough, enemy, a good enough
Yeah, he's
villain
a good
where
villain.
I'd like to have
Yes.
him around,
He's
especially
good
if we're just gonna
baggage
kill
for
him off so
Carden.
easy. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly. He's a really good point of tension between the two of them, between Carden and Jude, because she obviously hates him with good reason, and he's baggage for Carden. So,
Yeah, because also the
Did you
Queen
like
of
that
the
especially?
Undersea. Oh, sorry, Kaylee. I was just gonna say the Queen of the
Okay.
Undersea also gets resolved relatively easily. Like, don't get
yeah,
me wrong, I like the scene where Carden is flexing on her, but it's like both of the villains we had in this book are basically resolved with like a conversation,
very
more or
little.
less.
Leave
Yeah.
more room for the romantic conflict in the third book, I'm guessing. I don't remember it, like I said, but
Maddox
what I
is
was
our
gonna
villain
say
now.
was, yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I think that that's a good point too, because if you guys remember, maybe I'm making this up, but when Carden betrays Jude, she has an inner monologue where she like says that he looks a lot like his brother,
Mm-hmm.
where she's like thinking that. So it would be good
Yeah.
if like he was still a villain. That would be a good little like tie-in. But
Who she
anyway.
should have trauma from, by the way, because he held her captive and she had to kiss him and all these things, and like,
Yeah.
there's opportunity that is no longer there.
Yeah.
But
Right. We could have had a big build up, a big murder, a big kill, but
she should have more
and then
PTSD.
she should. Maybe she does. It's always the
You're
ones
right.
who intellectualize it, so
True. That's true.
maybe she'll unpack in the next one. My pour over, I put chapter 15 for shits and gigs. If you know, you know. But actually,
you know.
if you know, you know. But yeah, and just what's gonna happen next. I don't know. I was not expecting that ending, so
Mm-hmm.
uh, just thinking about
Tea.
it.
Yep. All right, we'll end it off with quick ratings and favorite parts. So my rating was a 4.2 out of 5. I took zero point 0.8 off for my hot take, but the rest is so good. And favorite part was the betrayal once again. So that's it.
Just so specific. I love it. It's very precise.
8 redacted. Or
Yeah.
you know.
My rating, I still feel 5 of 5. I thoroughly enjoy it. I think it's a great time every time. The beginning didn't bother me as much as it bothered y'all. I would kind of was, but I'm such a political intrigue girly. Like I can tolerate a lot more of the boredom if there's pieces being set up. So it was definitely not action packed. But anyways, and then my favorite part. There's so many. I don't know. I love it, but I love the moment where Jude goes to see Carden after the whole undersea thing, and she starts by, which is really dramatic, by the way. She puts her hand over his mouth and pretends like she's going to, like, I don't know, suffocate him, and he fights back, and then he realizes it's her, and he like just pulls her into the bed with him, and I just like my little heart. And she's like, he shouldn't trust me like this, and it's like, you dumb idiot. So it was just a very cute moment. It's very cute.
It was very cute.
I love. Agreed. So my rating, I was gonna say 4 out of 5, but I think it's higher. It's like a 4.5 out of 5 because I like this one a lot. My favorite part, probably just Jude faking the glamour. I was very impressed. Or like you talked about when we were talking about earlier, Maddie, like her acting and having to, this doesn't come naturally to her. Like she's doing so much work in the background to make this happen. And I don't know. I just thought it was really well written. So that's mine.
Slay. If everyone has said their piece, that is all the tea that we have on The Wicked King. Next time, we're continuing to switch gears. Help me. And reading the new release, The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent, who we love. In the meantime, check out our episodes on the first 2.5 books in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, especially Six Scorched Roses. That's still my favorite. It's the best. It's the best novella.
Still my favorite, yeah.
That's ever novella. Okay, it's worth the read.
So true.
So true.
You can stay up to date with the latest tea on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube by following us at Spill the Novel Tea on all of the things. And while you're there, let us know your hot take. Was the book too slow? Was the romance enough for you? I even saw someone recently say that Jude has no personality, which I vehemently disagree with. So let me know. Let us know.
But we're still open to the hot take, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still open.
Maybe.
I'm open to argue. You know,
if that was a little wild, but all right.
A little crazy, but it's a real take out there. So let me know your hot take. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.